So welcome back. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to add some navigation to our React app. Now there is a package that came to the rescue and it's called React Router, and it allows us to do that navigation that we want to do that's traditional on all websites. So I have the documents pulled up right here for reacttraining.com, and just as a really quick demonstration I'm going to show you what I mean. So when you click on these links in the top, we have home and it updates our URL in the browser. We have about, it takes us to a different page, so to speak, and it updates the URL in the browser. And then we click on topics and it updates some different content and it updates our URL as well. So that's what we're going to be doing in this section. We're going to add a menu bar as well as a loading screen animation. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the My App folder with our React app, and we're going to install some packages. The first one is going to be React Router, and then React Router DOM. Alright, perfect. So it looks like it installed. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a history file. So in the source directory, let's do new file, history.js. Now the only thing that you really need to concern yourself with right here is that we're creating an object that's going to let us do navigation throughout our entire application. So we're going to import create browser history, and this is one of 3 different ways that you can create the history object. This is, in my opinion, the most standard. It's going to give us those nice URLs that we're all used to with the slash and then the page name. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to create a new folder in our source directory. It's going to be called navbar. And within navbar, we're going to create our actual menu bar component. So let's start with that. We're going to import React as always. And we're going to import link, which is something new that we haven't gone over yet from React Router DOM. And what this is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to do that page navigation that we want to be able to do. That's traditional in web applications from the menu bar. So create a functional component called menu bar. We don't need any state here. And let's create our menu bar. So we're going to have a div called menu bar. The class name is going to be called menu bar, and we'll add all of the style at the end, so don't worry about that too much. Right now we're just going to be creating all the different HTML tags. So we have an unordered list, and then we're going to have some list items in there for the different items in our menu bar. So I'm going to do float left for this first one. This is going to be the test page. And it's going to take us to that slash test page. And then the next one is going to be a list item that's going to take us to the home page. And that text is going to be home. And at the very end, we're going to do export default menu bar. And there we go. Move the nav bar under the components directory because we want it to be in the components. That was my mistake. And under components, we're going to create a new folder called loader. Now this is going to be a simple animation that's just going to display a little loading icon whenever we're waiting for the page to load. So we're going to call this loadingbar.js. Let's write some code. And we're going to import the loading icon from that GIF folder that you downloaded in the last video from GitHub. So it's called loading spinner.svg, so it's just a different type of animated image. And we're going to create another functional component. It's going to be called loading bar because it doesn't have any state. So we're going to get a little bit of a performance boost out of that. It's going to be tiny, but you know, anything is better than nothing. And then inside of that, we're going to assign some class names to that div so we can do some style, and then have an image tag. It's going to be our loading icon. And the source is going to be that loading icon that we import. And then the alternative text is just going to be loading. Okay, and then as always, we're going to do export default loading bar. Alright, and then the next step, we're going to go to our table component. We're actually going to use that loading bar. So let's import that loading bar from the loader and its loading bar. Instead of returning nothing, we want to return that loading bar animation so that the user has some indication of what's going on. So that's all we need to do right there. And then the last step is for us to actually refactor our app. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to import the menu bar that we created. That should be under navbar, under menu. Okay, and then the next thing is we're going to import our history object that we created. So this is the object that's going to allow us to actually say, hey, I want you to go to this page when you click this button, or when this function is done running, I want you to go to, say, the home page or the user page, and so on. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to import some packages from React Router DOM so we can actually set up that page navigation from our main app. Okay, so we're going to create our router, and that's going to take the history object that we created all on our own. And the reason that you create the history object in that separate file so that you can use it from different components. And then we're going to do switch, and this is what says, hey, when you see certain paths for our routes, we want you to pick one based on what the URL or the path is. So let's write this down here. One path is going to be home. Oh, sorry, we need to do that closing tag. And then another path is going to be test. And we're going to take this out in further videos, but for now we just want to be able to say, hey, this is the path that you should be going to right now. So the switch statement says, hey, based on whatever the path is from our history object, display this type of content, this component. So if the path is home, we're going to display the table container, and if the path is test, then we're going to display the table component. And it's always going to switch between one of these. It's never going to show both. So that's why we have that switch statement. Okay, so last and final thing, we're going to go to our style sheet, and we're going to add in all of those class names that we defined earlier. So let's do loading bar first. We're going to do display block, and do margin auto, so automatically set the margin to whatever the defaults are for the browser. So we add some of that space, it's not too close to the edge. For the loading icon, we want to display that in a block, and then add that extra white space on all of the sides by default for whatever the browser says. And then we're going to do our menu bar classes and do background color bar. So if you remember this bar syntax, taking in that custom color that we defined at the very top, our display is going to be flow root. Now this is a different display CSS option that was introduced just a little bit ago, and it basically allows us to bypass a bunch of tricky CSS styles that we would have had to apply ourselves, and just does it for us. So that's why we have that. Menu bar items, list style type none. So we want to strip the default browser style from that. Do padding 0. Probably keep this consistent. So let's do dot menu bar items. So look for those li, and then nested within the li is going to be an a tag, which is that link component that we set up. Padding is going to be 13px, and then the color is going to be var -- primary silver, if I believe. Perfect. All right, so let's add some space here so we can see, and then do menu bar items. We're going to do li, and then when you see that a tag on hover, we want to change the background color to primary dark green. So whenever you hover with your mouse, it's going to change that background color to show you that it's selected. We're going to change the text color to white. So go back to your terminal. Let's run our API file. And let's open up another terminal to actually run our app. So mine's on the desktop. I'm going to go there, and then go within your My App directory and make sure it's my-app or whatever your React app folder is, and then do npm start. Oh, and it looks like we got a little error saying table is not defined, so let's go back to app, and let's import that table. Alright, right here we're at the root URL, so this isn't /home or /test, so nothing is being shown, but we do have the menu bar, because if you remember and you look back where we have right here, we said no matter what the path is, always show this menu bar, and then based on whether the path is home or test, then show exactly this component. The path has to be exactly this. That's how we have the exact keyword. So if we go to /home, we can see that, yay, we got our anime table just like we expected to. And if we go to test, it's just going to be this continually loading, because if you look here, we have this clause that says if there's no data or we happen to have a empty array, so there's nothing in element position 1, then always display that loading bar until we get some data. Now if we go to home, you'll see that it only shows that loading screen for a second, and that's because it doesn't have the data, but then the table container finishes that fetch request and sets the state and then passes in the data. So let's look right here and let's refresh it. And you can see that, right here at the bottom it loads for just a second and then it finally gets all the data. Okay, so that's gonna wrap it up for this video. And the next one, we will start to create our store.